Hello, this is Karen Harrison, and my website is www.karenharrison.net. Welcome to December Reiki Call with my guest speaker of Kathy Milanowski, a dear friend of mine from Deerfield, Wisconsin. So before I introduce her, we're going to just do a short grounding for us, a little meditation. So if you have Reiki, activate your Reiki and place your hands in Gasho. And just breathe in the Reiki energy. Imagine it flowing in through the top of your crown and spilling down through your body, through your shoulders, and on down into your chest, onto your stomach and your hips, and now down your thighs and your calves, down deep into the earth. And imagine this energy is continuing to flow like a beautiful waterfall of Reiki energy flowing over you, clearing your energy of whatever you need to release, filling you with new, healthy, loving energy. And imagine the energy is flowing down deep into the earth and is anchoring you at the center of the earth. And now imagine the energy from the center of the earth is now coming up through the earth all the way to the bottoms of your feet and flowing back up through your body, your legs and hips, your torso, your head, and out your crown into the heavens, all the way out into the heavens and anchoring around a star. And now see yourself securely anchored between the heavens and the earth, filled with Reiki, flowing in, widening that channel of Reiki energy until it encompasses your entire body and your aura, filling and clearing, cleansing your aura. Now, during this time of gathering together to discuss Reiki and family dynamics, we just intend to send each other Reiki so that we all receive, and everyone who watches later will also receive Reiki. And so it is, blessed be. All right. Well, Kathy is one of my dear friends, and she is a licensed Reiki master teacher in Deerfield, Wisconsin. Her website is wisconsinreiki.com. She also puts on amazing wellness retreats. I've been to 2 of them. She has them in Wisconsin, and she might be venturing out to other places, I heard through the grapevine. That could be exciting. Anyway, she's an excellent retreat facilitator, so I'd highly recommend her retreat. You can find out more about that on your website, right, Kathy? Or is it more on your Facebook?
No, it's on my website too. It's under the retreats. Yeah.
All right. She also has a YouTube channel, Wisconsin Reiki Center with Kathy Milanowski, Instagram, TikTok, and Reiki University under New Zenler. Okay, hopefully I got all that right. Anyway, she is a certified Reiki practitioner in multiple lineages, an animal communicator, a holographic sound practitioner, author of Heart Intelligence, Understanding the Power Within You. Maybe we ought to have you back to discuss that.
Sure.
She's skilled in crystal grid work and possesses various psychic and intuitive abilities, including being a psychic medium and Akashic record reader. So Kathy works diligently with her heart light. All right. Well, welcome, Kathy, to come and talk about Reiki and family dynamics.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm excited for this topic. Very much.
Yes. Yeah. So we welcome the listeners' questions and things too. Maybe we should tell about our own families to start off with, because you've got kiddos, and even though you're really young, you do have grandkids.
It's the Reiki. Makes me young, you know. Yeah, so I got three boys, a 35, 19, and 15. I have two grandkids that are 13 and 12. Right? And I love every little new souls that's on them. And a husband. And a couple cats and lots of wildlife. So yeah, I have I all the there's many dynamics in my family. Many, many, many. There's some kids that live with me and there's some that don't. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Well, and I have a daughter who is 30, lives in New York City, and my son is deceased. He had epilepsy at 22 and passed on. I used Reiki extensively for him and for me, and to help cope with all of that, and then with his passing. Um, and I have wildlife here too, but no other animals living here except the ones that are outside. All right. Well, Kathy, one of the things that we were talking about before we got on is how family members respond to when we take a Reiki class.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe some members are excited and happy about it and can't wait for you to give them Reiki, and others are like, what is that weird woo-woo? Or maybe they use the voodoo,
Yeah.
or worse yet.
Right.
I got the worst yet from my second husband. He actually called it the mark of the beast. So it didn't go over well with him.
Yeah, and that probably made you feel like crap too, right? I mean, being a
Well,
young Reiki practitioner.
yeah, I was all excited to share Reiki with him. And, whenever I would have Reiki shares at my house, he would leave and he would not come back until all the cars were gone,
Yeah,
because he was just kind of freaked out.
yeah,
It didn't fit with his very conservative religious upbringing and training.
right. Yeah. I know with me, when I first came out of class, I've always been kind of so I hear stories from my students because we're all different, right? Where we're at. So wherever our significant other meets us, when they meet us, where we're at in our spiritual journey, I've always been very spiritual as I understand energy and I see energy patterns. So I've always been kind of out there, you
Mhm.
know, but I married a scientist. And when he knew that I was going to do this Reiki stuff, but he really didn't read about it. So he wasn't really prepared. And when I would come home and tell him, he just knew that it was a touch thing and whatever. So when I came home, I was really, really excited. And I came home and I said, look, I'm going to give you some Reiki. And he's like, okay, whatever. And I don't think he really believed at all. And I gave him Reiki and he was like, oh, wow, that's real. And enough that there was a flu going around and I gave him Reiki and he says, he's not 100% with Reiki, like he doesn't practice it every day or anything like that, but he threw up and he didn't get this virus that was going around. And he really believed Reiki did that. Okay. So he was like, what is this stuff now? What's my wife doing? So I would go to a lot of Reiki shares. I would start developing Reiki into my work and things like that. And he started getting a little jealous. And I hear that a lot. It's like another
Really?
relationship. And that's what it is. Reiki is, if you give yourself Reiki every day and you work with Reiki all the time, you're developing a trusting relationship. That's why I always tell people to give themselves Reiki every day. You
Mhm.
don't get all the Reiki like somebody else would give it to you, but you're developing a trusting relationship with the vibration and
Mhm.
with yourself and how you become aware more about things, right?
Mhm.
And so he noticed that. He noticed that Kathy was giving herself a lot of Reiki because Kathy was very anxious at that point in time. I was suffering through panic disorders. And so he didn't want, he loves me. He didn't want to like stop me because it was doing something good for me, but he was secretly getting jealous. And so I had to wait for it didn't dawn on me. I wasn't aware of it. I just seen him get a little moody once in a while. So like I think it was like 6 or 8 months with, working with Reiki, it started making me aware why he was doing that. It wasn't that he didn't believe in it or, it wasn't his thing, but I was feeling that resistance in some way, with his our emotional connection. So a lot of times, and I hear this from a lot of students, they're like, I think my husband is like jealous of Reiki because I put Reiki in
Mhm.
everything I do. I do everything with Reiki.
That's
I was like, well,
fascinating, Kathy, because
right?
I haven't heard that from my students. So that's
Really?
interesting.
That. I hear a lot of that. Like after a while, they're like, I didn't realize this, but he's kind of like jealous. Like he's a little jealous when I go here and there. And I'm like, oh, I got Reiki. It's good. I'm feeling comfortable, confident. What about that connection with your husband? So I usually say, give them grace. For me, I gave my husband grace and I gave myself grace for not understanding what was going on. It wasn't all about him, maybe. Some of that percentage of all that energy I was giving him, I was giving back now to myself with Reiki. And so it was a different dynamic. Our relationship changed a little bit,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I don't know if you guys ever experienced that when you guys became Reiki. Well, what kind of things have you experienced when you got connected with Reiki and your awareness started, developing a little bit more with your family? Have you guys noticed anything different? No?
Now, like Lucy, was your husband happy about you having Reiki, or what did he think?
He was happy with it. And my stepson, he enjoyed when I was doing it on him for a while, and my stepdaughter, but they sort of got away from it. Of course, I moved, I was in California and in Colorado for several years, and the interest dropped. But my husband is very supportive, and I do it on him when he doesn't know it. So, but he's very open.
Yeah. My husband's very supportive. I have a center because he's very supportive. It's just that I didn't realize he was a little jealous. You know what I mean? Like I was putting not enough into the relationship as much,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
energy kind of deal.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's always a good idea to send Reiki into the relationship with the
Mhm.
intent of for the highest good of all concerned.
Yeah.
But then you have to release attachment to the results, because I did that with my second marriage, thinking, oh, it's going to make things all better and we're going to get along so much better. And he's going to get over his fear of Reiki. And no, that didn't happen. We ended up divorced. But, I can see now looking back how that was for the highest good, because Reiki was to become a very important path for me. And I could not have pursued Reiki and stayed married to him. And now I was wife number 2, and he's happily married to wife number 4.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it all worked out.
Yeah. For our highest good. I remember the first class I ever taught, I had 6 students, and 2 of them the next week left their husbands. Now,
Well, okay.
they might have been in an abusive situation and they got the courage to leave,
Okay.
in all honesty. Okay. So it was
Mhm.
kind of like they were getting the courage, they got the awareness, they got the courage, they got, whatever they needed. And they, and they did what they needed to do. I mean, that doesn't usually happen, but I was really surprised my first class being a young teacher, going, oh my goodness, but I know them now and they're doing very, very well.
Mhm.
Very, very well. Yeah.
Well,
Reiki kind of seems to harmonize you so you do what you need to do for you.
mhm. Yeah. Well, what about relationships where Reiki has helped to improve the relationship? So now we've talked about getting out of bad relationships, which I've certainly heard about from my students too. Not so much marriages, but normally it's about letting go of maybe a friendship that is no longer working, or perhaps more often a job,
Right.
that no longer fits. But, certainly Reiki can help improve relationships.
It's improved my communication. I mean, my community bring the awareness for my communication and being able to express myself that before I was not as good doing, especially with being very, very anxious and having those kind of things that I'm working on, that expressing myself was really hard. And Reiki, I'll never forget, it was about a year and a half working with Reiki with myself. I started expressing myself a lot better. And my husband was like, wow, this is really nice. You're emotionally telling me in a way that is very balancing. So, and I realized from my girlfriends, they would say the same thing. Like, you're expressing yourself a lot better than you were.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
have a story to share about my brother. My brother and I were only 13 months apart in age, and we grew up fighting with each other and trying to basically beat the crap out of each other. Well, as adults, we just never got along um, either. And I just would try to avoid him. And when we would go on family cruises, my whole extended family, I would always choose a different daytime activity, or outing than he was on, just so that I wouldn't have to be with him more than a couple hours at a time. And he was, kind of making fun of Reiki. And so I started sending Reiki when I needed, when I was going to be with him. I'd send it to his clothes and his hat and his truck, his dog, trying to maybe make that time with him a little bit more palatable. And a few years back, I got inspired to go ahead and start sending it to him and to his family. And at first, it felt like the energy didn't really go, but then it started feeling like it was going. And over the months and several years to follow, the relationship warmed up to where now my brother thinks about me all day long because he's sending me about 10 Snapchats a day.
That's beautiful.
And, we talk on the phone. We actually say, I love you sometimes, which was never, ever something that, we ever did. So it's made a huge difference in that relationship. So does anybody else have any stories of how Reiki has warmed up a family relationship for you?
Especially like holiday gatherings. We're having so many around this time. Some people do gratitude ceremonies, while they're before dinner or something like that, just to try that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy, what about you? Have you had any family relationships that have improved?
Oh, so very many. I think every single one has improved because my communication helped. But I'll send Reiki to different things. It's kind of heartwarming when your kids that don't ask for Reiki very much, but when they do, they come to you and like, I need some Reiki, mom. And it's like the most wonderful gift in the world to be like, okay, here we go. They're boys, so they don't want me to touch them, but you can beam and do what you need to do. But it's really super nice kind of deal. I have a fun one that I'm not sure if it was like it was it was amusing. My son goes out bicycling every day. and he bicycles at night and stuff like that. And sometimes he doesn't come home for dinner on, like, he'll come at 7 o'clock and I'll eat a little earlier. And I miss eating with him. So I was like, I started miss eating with him. So I started putting Reiki to that situation. And I was telling Karen this story, and I was like, I put it out there, and not 30 seconds later, here he comes inside the house. He goes, boy, am I hungry. I don't know why I'm hungry, Mom. I'm like, and he goes, oh, you gave me Reiki. I'm like, I sure did. And all I did was like, dinner's made. Let's eat together. So, I mean, it did kind of bring us together because we did giggle about it. And he was really happy about it. And he was like, okay, don't do that again. I was like, well, it's kind of like a call without using a cell phone, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's a nice
And
hug.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can do that with friends,
Mm-hmm.
too. Like if I want to talk to William Rand, I'll just think about him, send him a little burst of Reiki, and pretty soon he'll be calling me. And then I said, well, here's what I did. And he goes, well, I was doing the same thing, and I'm the one that, and then he'll take credit for it, and we'll both laugh.
That's funny. But it does. It is a connection. And it helps, being with your family members and working with it. It's just a beautiful thing. I did so here's one. It was animal Reiki. And I was guided to in our family room, we all sit down and watch TV. Okay. So around dinner time, this is what we do. And my two younger sons, um, the middle one actually was, when he was littler, more of a bully to the younger one. So the younger one really never trusted him too much at that time. And so I was learning animal Reiki, and I put the symbol out there, and it tells me to put the symbol out there in the middle of the room and think about all my family members coming into that symbol, and to just let it go. So I did, and I forgot about it, went to bed. And I was like, "Ooh, I messed up." And the next night, I get the same feeling. Do it again. And they're like, "It's okay. You could go to sleep. It doesn't matter. Just put it out there." So I tell my husband I'm doing this. I'm putting that out there. Do you feel it? What do you feel? What do you, and he's like, "Whatever. I feel relaxed, but I'm being relaxed." The third night, I put the symbol out there. My kids My one kid comes into the room, which I haven't seen him for a couple days, kind of deal, like not at that time. And he sits down, and we're like, "Oh, you're going to sit with us?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to sit with us." And my husband just looks at me. Then my youngest son comes home. He comes in about 10 seconds after that, and he goes, "I'm having trouble in some math class." And my middle kid, that usually would have told him, "Oh, you dummy," you know, kind of deal. He goes, "What's wrong in your math?" He goes, "It's da 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 da." And he goes, "I'll help you." And he goes, "You will?" "Yeah, I'll help you. Let's do it." They did it without arguing or crying or anything. And I was just like, and my husband looks at me and he goes, "Okay, let's keep on this up. Let's just put that out there." That was even significant from him. He was like, this works. This Reiki stuff works. It really harmonizes things. And what it did was, I think it just harmonized us,
Mm-hmm.
harmonized the family. So the middle child was not aggressive toward the younger child.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful to watch.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Oh, yeah, Lucy.
When you did the Reiki, Kathy, on your sons or your family, did you do the typical like 20 minutes or so, or did you do it shorter, longer, or how did you do it?
That when I just talked to you, that story, I basically drawed a symbol,
Hmm.
thought about I went like this, because I'm not going to sit there in the room. I just go like this, and I put my energy into the room, couple seconds, and let it go, and allow Reiki to do what it needed to do.
Okay.
And I had an intention to harmonize my family.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, "Oh, just do whatever you want to do." I mean, it does need direction. So at least for me, it does. And I just said, I want to harmonize my family. I had no idea that output. And you know what? They're it slowly over the time, they're pretty close now. I mean, it did some healing in some way and somehow. It was pretty significant in my family for that. It was a beautiful thing. Yeah. But that's what I did. I know you're supposed to beam in this. I just thought about I felt the energy say, do this, put it in the middle room, and think about all your family members in the symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave myself a little bit of Reiki in the room like that. And that was it. And then I watched TV. My husband was right beside watching me going. I was just like, he's like, that's my wife, and he loves the feeling, but he's like, okay, that's what she's doing. But that's when the third day he was just, that's remarkable.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, Reiki is such a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I mean, I used it on my trip with my daughter to Italy recently, where her stepmother's dog died. And that dog is the love of my daughter's life. And now I think that, that the dog's soul planned it so that I would be there to support my daughter 24 hours a day. As I just was holding her while she's crying for hours in the hotel room.
Yeah.
And then I decided to add in some Karuna chanting. She was not too happy about that.
Oh.
I had to start doing that little silently, but the whole room was just filled with this heavy grief energy. And I thought, well, that's not going to be good for us to sleep in that heavy grief energy. So I was adding in the vibrational healing to help clear the energy in the room.
Right.
But the Reiki really supported her through that. And I led the ICRT animal grief meditation for her and gave her a Reiki session when we got back home. And so it's now about, I don't know, 5 weeks later, and I think she's doing much better.
Yeah. I mean, Reiki doesn't take things away, but it helps you, empowers you to do what, the process, whatever we need.
Yeah. To me, it helps me to get in touch with my soul and my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
It brings that awareness there, huh?
Yeah. Now, what about when family members are sick? Do they come to you and ask you for Reiki, or do you offer them Reiki? And what if they don't want it?
Yeah. So, I gotta tell you, be honest, my kids will not ask for Reiki most of the time. I mean, I don't know, it's because of their ages or whatever. But when something happens and it really is bad, like a hurt bone or a muscle or something, I get asked. If they're super sick, I get asked. You know what I mean? Kind of deal. But it's and then I'll tell them, I'll say, here, try this for yourself, kind of deal, like a technique or something. But I mean, it's wonderful. It's like you have your own little doctor bag. You got different techniques for different things even with Reiki, to help somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an animal they found, and I'm the first person, they'll tell everybody, no, you cannot. She will take care of it. I'm thinking, why are you asking me to take care of this animal? You know what I mean? But I'm the first person. That's one. So anything that they really would cherish, they would ask me to give it Reiki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is really sweet. It's really sweet.
Yeah, that is. That is.
Yeah.
So, luckily my whole family, became open to Reiki. My younger sister is the one who got me into Reiki back in 1993, a very long time ago. And then, my mother took one of my Reiki classes. Oh, here's a funny story. In all my Reiki classes, I talk about the Reiki ethics and where you should put your hands and where you shouldn't put your hands. And I had my friend Michael in that class also. And I look over during class, and my mother has her hands right on Michael's pelvic bowl, right where I'd said not to place the hands. And I wasn't quite sure how to handle this in class because my mother is kind of a force to be reckoned with, 6 foot tall, redheaded lawyer. So I said to Michael, Michael, are you comfortable where my mother has her hands? And he said, well, they could be a little higher. Afterwards, my mother said, well, I really enjoyed that class. It's the most fun I've had in a long time.
That's funny.
I know. The joys of having family members in Reiki class. Have you had some of your
Oh,
kids in class? And
so my boys took a kids Reiki class with me. Okay.
Mm.
So I even told my middle one, he's taken every kid. I've only taught 3 in my life. And 2 of them I didn't realize it was 2017 and 2018. And he went to both Reiki classes. So the
Mhm.
first one I'm doing it, and I made a mistake and I said something wrong and he wanted to correct me.
Really? Well,
Oh
that's
yeah, I was
cool.
surprised. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Mom, the book says this." And I'm like,
Really? Well,
"Yeah, it was about Yusui."
that's actually kind of cool,
That was really
that
cool. I
he
just was
read
like,
the book.
yeah, I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Good. He's my son." I went on, I mean, it was just like, oops, kind of deal. But that was kind of neat that he did that. Yeah. And then I told him this last because I just taught a Reiki kids class last week. And I messaged him and I said, "Hey, buddy," I was like, "I'm teaching a Reiki kids class. This is the first one I've not taught without you." His response was, "Mom, I am not a Reiki teacher. You do not need me in your class anymore." Like, I'm like, okay, whatever, buddy.
Oh my
But
gosh.
kids are funny. They're so funny how they do their thing and stuff. My husband did not take a class with everybody. So I call it the husband course. And so at dinner, we sit at the table and we go through one thing while we're eating or after we're eating. And then, like, if we would have to do an experience or something like that after dinner, we would do that experience. And then the next day, we do something little. And he really enjoyed that. And he thought that
Oh,
was really fun. And what touched my heart was now he's a scientist. So he sat there and read the whole book. And he was studying the symbols and writing them out. And I
mhm.
thought it was the sexiest thing in my life. I was like, my husband's playing symbols. I know. I was just like, I was tickled pink. I was like, I let him do his thing. But yeah, it was just a highlight. It was a nice thing.
Well, that's a pretty cool thing, Kathy, and that might make a nice article for the Reiki News magazine.
Okay. All
Reiki
right.
for couple bonding, the husband course, and
Yep.
spread out a little bit every night and then an activity.
Yep.
And sometimes I end up with couples in my classes and I love that.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, there's so much that you can do to enhance your relationship,
It's
with
super
Reiki.
special. It's
And
super special.
and then that kind of gets into the realm of tantra, which is sacred sexuality,
Right.
but just basics, like giving each other
Put your heart on the heart,
uh-huh.
and just
Yeah, the
feel
heart
that
hold.
vibration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And being able to give Reiki to each other when one doesn't feel well, if both of you have Reiki or, sending it into your intentions. Um, just so many beautiful things that you
Just
can.
clearing the room out. Hey, honey, can you clear the room out for me? I'm coming home. I mean, we could do it distantly, but it's gotta be
Yeah.
like kind of nice. It's like, yeah, all right, I could do that.
Uh-huh. Ah, good. Yeah,
I mean,
grounding the
and your
room.
partner, if you guys have your partners that know Reiki, you might, I noticed that first I thought he wasn't using it very much because he wasn't like me doing what I do, right? I'm a Reiki teacher, so I'm going to be obviously using Reiki all the time and talking about it, but he doesn't. But then I realized one time he said to me, he goes, yeah. So he's like he's a research scientist. So, but he looks over different things. So he has an office, and he goes, "Yeah, all the people like coming in my office." I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "I am the most relaxed scientist," they say. I said, "You are?" And then he's like, "Yes, I'm relaxed." And I'm like, "You are?" He goes, "Yeah, I put those symbols up in my room." And then they all start coming in just to sit there. So if I don't want them in there, I don't put the symbols in the room.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, certainly that happens whenever I'm teaching Reiki class. That is always the day that the lawn guy comes. It doesn't matter if I've changed the day of my class or whatever. The lawn guy comes, the furnace guy will show up, the bug guy, it's just like, oh my God, package deliveries. I mean, it just attracts
It
people.
tracks. It does. It's all good.
Yeah.
Harmony. It needed to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Oh, I have a funny story. When my daughter was younger, I was teaching some kid Reiki classes and I would have her help me with them. Well, one class, we ran out of material about an hour early. And I thought, oh no, now what? I had like, I don't know, 6 or 8 kids that were full of energy and needed something to do. So I asked her, go devise a Reiki game and take them outside. So she did. And it's like, oh, thank goodness for that. It's something like flag Reiki or something, where they tag each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Did she like doing that?
Yeah, she did. But, I mean, she now doesn't, I mean, she's had the Reiki class, but she doesn't do Reiki for herself. Whenever she wants it, she asks me. So,
That's kind of what my
you
kids do.
know, yeah, I mean, sometimes family members, we train them, but then they just think that we're the ones that give the Reiki and they don't. And
Right.
I guess we just have to accept
It's just,
that.
yep. And it's just not their thing like that way.
Mm,
At least they welcome it in their life. That's how I feel. Before I would make all these judgments like, no, you're hurt or you're sick. I want to give you Reiki. That's my mom. I'm your mother. Boom, boom, boom. And then I realized,
no, we can't force it.
nope, we can't. So that is a perfect time that I give myself Reiki. But I
Hmm.
feel like I need to push Reiki on somebody else. This is what I've learned in my time. I'll give myself Reiki.
Yeah.
And it's a great time to get with yourself and give yourself Reiki, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I go through that. I'm a mom. I want to help, the best way
Yeah.
I can. And my heart goes, woo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No.
I mean, the same thing with your animals or anything that you love, anything that,
Mhm.
is connected to you kind of
Yeah.
deal. It's kind of,
Yeah.
and then how do you feel, Karen, like when people like your family members just think that you should be giving them Reiki? Like, oh, Karen, you should give me Reiki. Like I had some family members that wanted me to give them Reiki all the time.
Oh, really? We
Yeah.
call this Reiki hogs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you like, where do you, to create those boundaries, very
Uh-huh.
healthy boundaries for yourself as a Reiki practitioner. So I used to get this a lot. Girlfriends.
Hmm.
All my friends, oh, give me Reiki, give me Reiki, give me Reiki, do this, do this. Can you tell me what's going on here or there? Blah, 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 blah. And that would get too much for me. And then I started learning I had to make these better boundaries for myself.
Ah, okay. So what did you do? What did you tell him?
I told them no. I'm a
Oh,
Scorpio. So I just said no. I said, I gotta do my boundaries. I said, you want something, I will give you 110% of me, but you're gonna have to schedule something.
yeah.
If you're a
Good
family
for
member, I'll
you.
give it to you for free, but a friend, no. Mm-mm. I
Hmm.
don't even do trades because it got too much. People
Yeah.
wanted me to tell them my psychic center or this or that, and it just really did. It got a little bit out of there. So that's what I just did.
Hmm.
You know, they still love me. The ones that wanted me just for that particular thing they drifted off, right?
Hmm.
So they're not really my friends. They just
Mm.
wanted something from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Lucy, did you want to say something?
I have a question. When you do the distance Reiki on, let's say you wanted to do it on a group of family members, and I know rather than using, a bear or a stuffed animal, do you do it like a photograph, or do you like uh,
Me personally,
visualize them? Yeah, either one of you, or do you visualize them in your hand, or how do you, or an aura around them? How do you do it that way?
well, for me,
Mhm.
I will put the distance symbol out there because that'll empower it. Now, I don't have to. I can just think good thoughts, right? And they're going to feel it. So, but the distance symbol will empower it for me. So I'll sit there, turn my Reiki on,
Mhm.
and then I'll put it out there. I used to use a medium like a bear or a ball or my body, but I basically just put my hands comfortably here or on my lap and I just start sending Reiki.
Okay.
And that's just my personal relationship with Reiki. I don't think there's no wrong or right things. What we teach you is to give you those techniques and then you develop with it. But that's kind of what I do. Now, if I connect with Reiki and I get like this intuition, like I need to put everybody in the middle, right? And put a big aura over them, then I'll do that too. I'll do whatever I'm guided to do. If something says, no, you're going to start giving yourself Reiki like, you would do a person, I would do that. I'm open to any guidance, what I could do to help me to be a better channeler, to connect,
Mhm.
whatever I need.
Okay, thank you. How
Wonderful.
about you, Karen?
Well, see my Reiki doll over there on the table.
Yeah.
I just use my Reiki doll most of the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
When my father had prostate cancer and he had been the caregiver for my mother because my mother had had poor health for a lot of years. Well, then my mother had to become the caregiver. So then all of us siblings had to become their caregivers.
Mhm.
So what I would do is every night when I would go to sleep, I would just take the doll, I'd activate the Reiki, the distance symbol, other symbols, and then I would just intend to send Reiki to my mom and my dad. And at that point, I was sending Reiki to my son also with his epilepsy. So I would just send all night long. And when I would wake up, it might have stopped. I could feel, the tingling and the warmth subsided. So
Mhm.
then I would activate it and send it again. And
Okay.
I did that for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of times I'll do visualization too,
Mhm.
that person or
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that works.
Yep. Anything that works. We have our
Yeah.
senses, so why not use them, you know?
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Reiki hogs. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and then what about the people that, they just don't want Reiki? Family members that are like, no, don't send that weird whatever stuff to me. Like, no.
Again, it's a perfect time to give yourself Reiki.
Uh-huh.
I will sit there. I mean, I'll be in like family situations. There will be a lot of people in the family. Excuse me. And they will actually maybe start slightly teasing me about it. And I'm like, and I'll just start giving myself Reiki or put my hands on my lap. I'm like, because I can make a lot of judgment calls of why they're doing it, but I'm not sure. I'm not them. They could be nervous about it. They could be like, what's going on? They could be like, they don't believe in it. They could be this way or that way. I'm a storyteller, so I could tell all these stories about them, but I won't really know. So I give myself Reiki. And that's what Reiki's taught me. Because before I was a big storyteller about it, I made all these judgments. And Reiki's like, you have no idea,
Mm-hmm.
Reiki.
Yeah. Or send
Because it
Reiki.
could be very hurting, you know what I mean? To make you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
something that you cherish in your heart and your whole being because it's helped you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And give Reiki to the relationship.
Yeah.
That's what I did a lot with my brother. Reiki into the relationship for the highest good and to clear it. And, that's where I use the holy fire and the holy love. So I'll just imagine, like the two people, and I'll just intend to send holy fire, back and forth between the two people to clear it. And then I'll intend to fill it back up with holy love, holy love, holy love between the two people. In fact, I used to use that in my counseling practice also when I was doing marriage therapy. So, and welcome to the people that joined us a little later. We're also taking questions about Reiki and family. If there's anything that you want to ask, we had, prepared some things to talk about, but we're open to your questions. Well, while we're seeing if anybody has any questions, I wanted to share the story about giving Reiki to my father. So, my father had developed cardiac problems and prostate cancer. So when I would see him, we would sit in a chair across from each other and I would beam Reiki, for the prostate cancer, which always felt rather awkward. I really preferred to give him Reiki at a distance rather than do that. But, I was impressed that my dad was willing to, receive Reiki. And so, and then when my mom had developed dementia, she had become rather paranoid and mistrusting. And, I was just always sending her Reiki and giving her Reiki. And it developed just a super sweetness in our relationship. One time I did the eye gazing with her where I sent a Reiki with my eyes and looked into her eyes. And it was just like, oh, my heart opened up so much and her heart opened up. And it was so beautiful and, so loving. And, that really helped get through some of those challenging dementia things, where at one point she didn't even remember if I was really her daughter or not.
That has to be hard on you too. I'm going through that too. Sometimes when I teach Reiki, probably 80% of the time, when I'm at the distant symbol portion of it, I give my eldest son distant Reiki. Now he's told me, he lives on the East Coast, and he's told me, and he's not a Reiki practitioner. He's told me I could give him Reiki anytime I wanted to. He's like, you could do it. I'm a total receiver, but I'm not going to be a practitioner. And I will do it, and he won't know when I'm teaching or whatever's going on, but he'll message me that night and said, you gave me Reiki. And I'm like, wow. He's like, uh-huh. He's like, I felt it.
Well, that's pretty amazing because I find so often that people don't really notice that you're doing distance Reiki unless they are laying down and expecting it.
Right. He's sensitive. He's my kid. He's sensitive, he's pretty sensitive. It surprised me too. I know when I first came to seeing him after I got to be Reiki, I didn't say much. I maybe told him I had a class or something. And I came to visit and he looked at me and he goes, why is there a lime green sheen around your whole being? He goes, it kind of reminds me of slime, but it seems very nice. I looked at him, I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh yeah, Mom, you got the green goo on you. And so I brought my crystals. I said, well, look at my crystals, right? And he's like, oh, they got the green goo on them too. Did you put that stuff in there? And I was like, I did. That's what I learned. And he's like, yeah. He goes, and I was like, well, green is healing energy. And he goes, well, I see that. Yeah. He's real sensitive, but he doesn't want to be a practitioner, but he's like, it's great. It's not bad green goo. It's good green goo, but I could see a difference on you.
It's me, the green goo. Oh my. Oh my. Wow.
People say all different things. It was not bad, but yeah, green goo.
Yeah. Now, have you had any family members that you've worked on where they were expecting to be like completely healed, like in one Reiki session and or maybe you hoped that they would be completely healed in one Reiki session? How do you deal with that?
Well, so I had a really bad anxiety issue. I had a panic attack. I was agoraphobic. I didn't leave the house. So my family, and this is from my first marriage when I was 19. So I'm 55 now. So it's, so my family seen me go through this. And so when they saw me connect with Reiki, they saw a big change right away. And then slowly over the 10 years, they seen it develop. So they kind of know Reiki doesn't heal you like that. They kind of see me slowly being who I am and what I am and responding, you know what I mean, and communicating and things like that. They saw that, oh wow, Kathy's communicating better. Oh, now Kathy's has a lot of courage. Oh wow, Kathy's going social media. Like a lot of different things. So they know that. So they don't expect anything. So they haven't been on the other side, hear all these magical stories. So they know you have to work with it, and they rather have things go faster. So my side of the family, they're just like typical people. They want things healed like that, so they don't really pay attention to it. My sister, on the other hand, she's a cancer survivor, and when she got cancer, she had a really bad time and she almost died. And so I went down there. I was doing some stuff, and I got to go down there, and I stayed with her for a month, and I would give her Reiki every night. And she would sit by, she just wanted to sit on the floor, and I'd give her Reiki every night. Now, when I would give her the Reiki and stuff, she'd feel good. But then because of the chemo, because of all the stuff that's on her, her ankles started swelling. And she goes, "Is that from the Reiki?" I'm like, "No, I totally believe it's not from the Reiki, but you're gonna have to address that with the doctor, because it probably made more movement in her body, you know what I mean? Doing whatever it needs. Now she's been cancer free for a while. So a couple of years
Wonderful.
now, about 4 years, 4 years.
Wow.
So yeah. So, but I would give it to her every night. She's one person, she loves Reiki. Now, another cute story. So when I was giving her Reiki, her dog would look at me all the time. Her dog's on medication for anxiety. So, I understand the dog. I'm like, okay, the dog really never really wanted to be too much beside me. So she started feeling this Reiki every night, and she started getting closer and closer and closer to me. And so I was staying downstairs in their basement because I was there for a month, and the dog never went down in the basement. I don't know, 10, 20 years they lived there. I don't know. Never went in the basement. I told her, I said, Nala, if you come in the basement with my sister Patty, we go down to the basement, I'll give you Reiki. The dog followed us. My sister goes, "You don't understand. This dog doesn't do anything." And I gave the dog, so every night the dog would come to the bed. I got the snuggles and I gave her Reiki. So it was kind of neat, when they're open,
Uh-huh.
things can happen, but they don't, I don't think my family feels like it has to be a spontaneous thing because they've never heard me say any kind of remarkable stories, you
Mm.
know. What about you, Karen?
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty amazing, that yeah, she was open to it and that you were giving her cancer or Reiki to support her through her cancer journey, and now she's cancer free.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
mean, that's pretty amazing.
yeah,
Well, there's just uh, so many times I've used Reiki. One story that pops into mind is when I was on a trip with my daughter, and we were not getting along at all, and things were pretty challenging. We were overseas, and I referred to that trip as the pain in Spain and the fights in France. And I finally, my ultimate goal was just to not say anything that I would regret. And so at one point, I was just holding my tongue, and my daughter was saying, "What are you doing?" And I was saying, I'm meditating." And I was reciting this mantra, Jesus loves, my daughter, and Jesus loves me. And I was just saying that to myself over and over again because that's what Reiki gave me, just over and over again. And I made it through the trip. I didn't say anything that I totally regretted. Some of the things that I was thinking were rather ugly. And I'm really glad that none of those came out of my mouth because they would have been the sort of thing that, you'd go to therapy for a while to work out. It'd be my shame and guilt, and it would be her, trauma. So, seeing as I'm a counselor, I didn't really want to further traumatize her, I mean, one of my goals for parenting, all right, was that my daughter would need less therapy than I did. I am not sure at all that I have succeeded at that. Uh, but I think I think part of it is because I convinced my daughter the benefit of therapy. So I think that, she has just stayed in therapy for a really long time. And um, I don't know. I just hope that having such a weird mother has not caused her a lot of therapy time. But, I was always the weird mom, and she didn't want to bring her friends over to my house because I had crystals and goddess statues all over my house and things that you didn't find in other traditional Johnson County, Kansas homes. So,
Yep, that's how like Deerfield, Wisconsin, it's a hunting village. And I have a crystal shop here. That's okay. People like crystals, but yeah, I wasn't the mom that everybody came to the house. He was a little
yeah,
embarrassed, a little bit. A little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
He said he loved me, but I was just odd.
Yeah. So Kathy, I'm thinking about, in fact, maybe I'll have to go on Etsy and see if I can find it so that I have it for Christmas to wear.
Yeah,
And it says Weird Moms Build Character.
there you go. There you go. You know, it could be worse. I tell my one son, I said, I could be no, with no heart. He goes, no, you can't, mom, because you got a lot of heart. And I'm like, well, there you go. It could be worse. But I think the older he gets, the more he's respecting it a little bit more. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like he's like, okay, because the world's not so great. At least mom's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we
Right.
are coming to the end of our time. Are there any final questions that any of our listeners want to ask about Reiki and the family before we end?
I don't have a question, and I do have a comment. I so appreciate showing up here late and being included in this conversation, because in the short amount of time I've been here, you have just wrapped my family up in a nutshell and done a lot of healing. I so appreciate this conversation, especially at this time of year. So I am
Hmm.
filled with gratitude to and for everyone present. So many of the descriptions were quite apropos. And, at this point in time, I can look back and laugh and really enjoy them and experience the wisdom of all that character building. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
you're welcome. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's been a long journey. I mean, from 1993 to present, that's what, 31 years of opportunities to use Reiki and for myself and the family. And, maybe we'll have to have a part two.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
please do. Because,
It's fun.
when you were sharing about weird moms and stuff, so I have 9 siblings, and we were having a knockdown, drag out, physical and verbal fight. And my mother, a devout Roman Catholic, had her altar, and we spanned 15 years. And I went to her and I was like, and she was kneeling at her altar, and I was like, Mom, do something. She goes, I'm praying you will stop. And for people that I use the phrase intercessory prayer, and as you were sharing, that phrase came through, and I just all of a sudden I was like right there, transported to that moment. I'm like, okay, Mother, got it.
yeah. Well, and I always thought that Reiki is really just focused prayer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
that when I work with people that are Christians that are maybe rather skeptical or whatever, it's just focused prayer time. We actually are spending longer possibly with a Reiki treatment than a person might with prayer. And, do longer prayers work better than shorter prayers? Well, not necessarily, but maybe sometimes they help provide some more comfort or benefit, perhaps.
I love this, and this is such a benefit, and this conversation has been so healing because it's inside the container of Reiki. So please do a a part two. I would very much enjoy that.
That'd be awesome.
You made a very straight path for me, and I look forward to this recording for just to play catch up. This was delightful. Thank you for
Wow.
being here and hosting us and contributing to us and to the world.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and thank you to all of our listeners. Some podcasts just record without an audience, but I always thought, well, let's have a live audience. Let's see what they have to say and get their input and questions. So,
Yeah.
well, Kathy, just thank you so much for joining us from
Thank you.
Wisconsin. And I know you're battling a little bit of a cold, but couldn't even tell.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing from your heart and, your love of Reiki and your family. And, it truly touched my heart. So I appreciate you so much. So find
Yeah.
Kathy at Wisconsin Reiki and consider going to one of her wellness retreats. And my website is KarenHarrison.net. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. And until then, happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Holidays.
Okay,
Happy holidays. Thank
bye.